What happens when a legendary actress and model gets pushed too far by a relentless interviewer who refuses to respect boundaries? Tonight, we're diving deep into one of the most explosive celebrity interviews ever captured on camera, where Elizabeth Hurley's trademark composure completely shattered in front of millions of viewers. This wasn't just another awkward celebrity moment. This was a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral out of control when professionalism goes out the window. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think went too far in this interview. Trust me, you're going to have opinions after hearing this unfold. The Entertainment Tonight studio was buzzing with its usual energy as cameras rolled for what was supposed to be a standard promotional interview. Elizabeth Hurley had agreed to appear on the show to discuss her latest project, a romantic drama that had been generating considerable buzz in Hollywood circles. The actress, known for her poise and media savvy, settled into the familiar interview chair with the kind of confidence that comes from decades in the spotlight. The host, Kevin Matthews, had built his reputation on getting celebrities to open up, sometimes pushing boundaries that others wouldn't dare cross. His approach had made him both famous and infamous in equal measure. Tonight, he seemed particularly energized, perhaps sensing an opportunity to create the kind of television moment that would have social media talking for weeks. "Elizabeth, wonderful to have you here tonight," Kevin began with his trademark smile, the kind that never quite reached his eyes. "You look absolutely stunning, as always." "Thank you, Kevin. It's great to be here," Elizabeth replied, her British accent lending an elegant quality to her words. She had done hundreds of these interviews, and this felt like any other, at least initially. "Now, before we talk about your new film, I have to ask about something that's been making headlines recently. There have been some rather interesting reports about your personal life, specifically regarding your relationship status." Elizabeth's smile remained fixed, but there was a subtle shift in her posture. "I'm here to discuss my work, Kevin. The film is really what I'm excited to share with your viewers." Kevin leaned forward slightly, his interviewer instincts clearly activated. Of course. But you know our audience loves to know about the real Elizabeth Hurley. There have been rumors, shall we say, about you and a certain married producer who worked on your last project. Care to comment?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Elizabeth's media training had prepared her for invasive questions, but something about Kevin's tone suggested this wasn't going to be a gentle probing. This felt more like an interrogation disguised as entertainment. "Kevin, I think there's been some confusion. I'm not here to discuss unfounded rumors or gossip. Perhaps we could talk about the incredible cast I worked with on this new project, or the beautiful locations where we filmed." But Kevin wasn't deterred. If anything, Elizabeth's attempt to redirect seemed to fuel his determination. "I understand your reluctance, but these aren't just random tabloid whispers. Elizabeth, we have sources, credible sources, who are saying there was definitely something going on between you and director Marcus Chen during the filming of Midnight in Monaco. The timing is particularly interesting, given that his wife had just given birth to their second child." Elizabeth's composure flickered for just a moment, a flash of something sharper crossing her features. "Marcus Chen is a brilliant director and a family man. Whatever sources you think you have are clearly misinformed or have their own agenda. I won't dignify baseless accusations with a response." "But Elizabeth," Kevin pressed on, clearly sensing he had found a pressure point, "we have photographs. Not just the usual paparazzi shots, but images that show a level of intimacy that goes beyond professional collaboration. There's one particular image of you two on his yacht, and your body language tells quite a different story than what you're saying now." The studio audience, which had been quietly attentive, was now completely silent. This had moved far beyond the usual celebrity softball questions. Even the camera operators seemed to sense they were capturing something significant. Elizabeth's voice took on a steely quality that anyone who knew her well would recognize as a warning sign. "Kevin, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to listen very carefully. I have never had an inappropriate relationship with Marcus Chen or any other married man. The fact that you would sit here and make these accusations based on unnamed sources and misinterpreted photographs is not just unprofessional, it's potentially defamatory." Kevin, however, seemed to interpret her firmness as confirmation rather than denial. "Elizabeth, I appreciate your position, but we both know that Hollywood is a small world. People talk, people see things. Your representative has been fielding calls about this story for weeks. Surely you knew this conversation was inevitable." "What's inevitable, Kevin, is that I'm going to walk out of this interview if you continue down this path. I came here as a courtesy to promote a film that dozens of talented people worked incredibly hard to create. I didn't come here to be ambushed." With tabloid gossip presented as fact, the tension in the studio was now palpable. Kevin's production team was likely torn between the excitement of creating compelling television and the concern that they were about to lose their guest entirely. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every micro-expression, every subtle shift in body language. Kevin made what would prove to be a critical miscalculation. Instead of backing down or pivoting to safer territory, he doubled down with the kind of question that would define the entire interview. Elizabeth, with respect, getting defensive about these questions only makes our viewers more curious. If there's nothing to hide, why not just address the rumors directly? Your silence is actually becoming part of the story. Elizabeth stood up slowly, her movement deliberate and controlled. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute finality. My silence, Kevin, is not an admission of anything except that I refuse to participate in character assassination disguised as journalism. The studio lights seemed to burn brighter as Elizabeth remained standing, her decision to rise from the interview chair sending an unmistakable message. But Kevin Matthews wasn't reading the room, or perhaps he was reading it perfectly and choosing to ignore every warning sign flashing before him. Elizabeth, please, sit back down. I think you're overreacting to what are perfectly legitimate questions that any entertainment journalist would ask. This is Entertainment Tonight, after all. Our viewers expect us to cover all aspects of celebrity life. Elizabeth's laugh was sharp and humorless. Legitimate questions. Kevin, you've spent the last 10 minutes making accusations about my personal life based on what you claim are credible sources, yet you won't name a single one. You've suggested I had an affair with a married man without providing any actual evidence. That's not journalism, that's gossip mongering. Kevin's media training kicked in as he attempted to regain control of the narrative. I understand this is uncomfortable, but these are the realities of being a public figure. Elizabeth, the public has a right to know about the people they admire and support. When you take on high-profile roles, when you walk red carpets and attend premieres, you're opening your life to scrutiny. The public has a right to know about my work. Kevin, they have a right to know about my charitable endeavors, my upcoming projects, my thoughts on the industry. They do not have a right to fabricated stories about my personal relationships, especially when those stories could damage innocent people and their families. But Kevin was relentless, perhaps sensing that backing down now would make him look weak in front of his audience. Elizabeth, I have to push back on the word fabricated. We've done our due diligence on this story. Multiple sources have confirmed that there was unusual closeness between you and Marcus Chen during filming. Hotel staff, crew members, people who were there and saw what was happening. Elizabeth's eyes flashed with genuine anger. Now, hotel staff, crew members. Kevin, do you realize what you're suggesting? That I conducted some sort of clandestine affair in front of dozens of film industry professionals? Do you understand how ridiculous that sounds? I'm not suggesting anything, Elizabeth. I'm reporting on what we've been told by people who were present during the production of Midnight in Monaco. People who have no reason to lie. People who simply observed interactions that seemed to go beyond professional collaboration. The audience was completely transfixed. Now, this had moved far beyond entertainment into something that felt almost dangerous, like watching a car accident unfold in slow motion. The cameras captured every moment as Elizabeth began to pace slightly, her composure finally beginning to crack under the sustained assault. You want to know what's beyond professional collaboration? Kevin, this interview, this ambush, you invited me here under false pretenses. Told my representatives this would be a standard promotional interview, and instead, you've turned it into a trial where I'm apparently guilty until proven innocent. Kevin leaned back in his chair, adopting what he probably thought was a reasonable pose. Elizabeth, I think you're being a bit dramatic. These are standard questions that celebrities face all the time. If there's nothing to the rumors, then simply denying them should put the matter to rest. Simply denying them. Elizabeth's voice rose for the first time, her British reserve finally giving way to raw frustration. Kevin, I've denied them repeatedly in this interview. I've explained that your sources are wrong, that your photographs are being misinterpreted, that Marcus Chen is a family man and a professional colleague. What more do you want from me? I want the truth, Elizabeth. I want our viewers to hear an honest response to legitimate concerns about behavior that, if true, would represent a significant departure from the image you've carefully cultivated over your career. Elizabeth stopped pacing and fixed Kevin with a stare that could have frozen champagne. The truth. Here's the truth, Kevin. The truth is that you've built an entire segment around unsubstantiated rumors because you think it will generate ratings. The truth is that you're willing to damage reputations and hurt families for the sake of creating a viral moment. The truth is that this isn't journalism, it's exploitation. Kevin's mask slipped slightly, revealing something harder underneath. Elizabeth, with all due respect, you're a public figure who has made millions of dollars trading on your image and your relationships. You've used your personal life to promote your career when it suited you. You can't have it both ways. Can't have it both ways, Elizabeth repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. Kevin, there's a difference between sharing aspects of my life that I choose to share and having lies fabricated about me. There's a difference between being open with the public and being subjected to character assassination. The tension had reached a breaking point, but Kevin seemed incapable of recognizing when to stop. Character assassination is a strong term. Elizabeth, I think what we're doing here is having an honest conversation about rumors that are already circulating in the industry and the media. Wouldn't you prefer to address them head-on rather than let them fester? Elizabeth moved toward the edge of the interview area, her body language making it clear that she was preparing to leave. What I would prefer, Kevin, is to work with journalists who understand the difference between reporting news and manufacturing controversy. What I would prefer is to be treated with basic respect and professionalism. But Elizabeth, Kevin, called out, clearly panicking now as he realized his guest was genuinely preparing to walk away. We haven't even talked about your new film yet. Isn't that why you're here? Elizabeth turned back to face him, and when she spoke, her words were measured and devastating. Kevin, after the last 20 minutes, do you honestly think I would trust you to conduct a professional interview about my work? Do you think I would give you the opportunity to twist my words about something? I care deeply about the way you've twisted everything else in this conversation. The studio had fallen into the kind of silence that happens just before something irreversible occurs. Kevin made one final, desperate attempt to salvage the interview, but his next words would be the ones that finally pushed Elizabeth past the point of no return. Kevin's desperation was becoming increasingly obvious as he watched his exclusive interview slipping away. In what would prove to be the most catastrophic decision of his career, he chose to go nuclear rather than admit defeat. Elizabeth, before you go, I think our viewers deserve to know about the phone call. The one Marcus Chen made to his wife from your hotel room at 3 in the morning. We have the hotel records, Elizabeth. We know he was there. The words hit the studio like a physical blow. Elizabeth froze mid-step, her back still turned to Kevin, and for a moment the only sound was the quiet hum of the television equipment. When she turned around, her face had transformed completely. Gone was any pretense of media-trained politeness or professional courtesy. You have hotel records. Elizabeth's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that comes just before a storm. Breaks, Kevin. Are you telling me and your viewers that you obtained private hotel records to support your tabloid story? Kevin realized too late that he had crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Elizabeth, we're journalists. We follow leads wherever they take us. If there's nothing inappropriate about Marcus being in your room, then surely the timing isn't relevant. The timing isn't relevant. Elizabeth's composure finally shattered completely. Kevin, you're talking about a private conversation between a director and his wife. You're talking about private hotel information that you somehow illegally obtained. You're talking about violating the privacy of multiple people to support a story that exists only in your imagination. The cameras continued rolling as Elizabeth advanced back toward Kevin's desk. But now, her movement was predatory rather than defensive. Every person in that studio knew they were witnessing something unprecedented. I want you to listen to me very carefully, Kevin. Marcus Chen called his wife from my room because his phone had died and he needed to tell her that filming had run late and he wouldn't be home until morning. He was in my room for exactly as long as it took to make that phone call and collect some script revisions we had been working on. There were 12 other people present, including the script supervisor, the cinematographer, and 2 producers. Kevin's face had gone pale, but he pressed on with the kind of reckless determination that destroys careers. Elizabeth, if that's true, then why not just say that from the beginning? Why the defensive posture? Why the threats to leave? Elizabeth's laugh was sharp and bitter. Defensive posture. Kevin, you ambushed me with false accusations, refused to listen to my denials, claimed to have photographs that supposedly prove an affair that never happened, and then admitted to illegally obtaining private hotel records. And you want to know why I'm defensive? The studio audience was completely silent now, watching this confrontation unfold with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for natural disasters. Even Kevin's production team seemed frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let this play out to its inevitable conclusion. Kevin, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to walk out of this studio, and then I'm going to call my attorney. We're going to discuss whether your actions tonight constitute harassment, defamation, or invasion of privacy. We're going to talk about whether Entertainment Tonight's research methods are legal or ethical. Kevin made one last desperate attempt to regain control. Elizabeth, I think you're overreacting. This is how the entertainment industry works. These are the kinds of stories that get covered. If you can't handle basic questions about your professional relationships, maybe you're not ready for the level of scrutiny that comes with major film roles. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Elizabeth accepted it with devastating precision. Kevin, I've been in this industry for over 30 years. I've handled more scrutiny, more invasive questions, and more professional challenges than you can imagine. What I can't handle, what I won't handle, is being lied to, ambushed, and treated like a criminal by someone who calls himself a journalist. She moved toward her purse, which had been placed on a side table, her movements deliberate and final. You want to know about professional relationships? Kevin, Here's a professional relationship lesson for you. When you invite someone onto your show under false pretenses, when you ignore their clear boundaries, when you make accusations without evidence, and when you admit to obtaining private information through questionable means, you don't get to act surprised when they refuse to participate in your circus. Kevin made one final fatal error in judgment. Elizabeth, walking away from tough questions isn't going to make the story disappear. If anything, storming off just makes you look guilty of exactly what we've been discussing. Elizabeth paused with her hand on her purse, and when she looked back at Kevin, her expression was one of pure contempt. Kevin, the only thing I'm guilty of is agreeing to this interview in the first place. The only mistake I've made tonight is sitting in that chair for as long as I did, while you systematically tried to destroy my reputation for entertainment value. She slung her purse over her shoulder and began walking toward the studio exit, with the kind of determined stride that made it clear nothing would stop her now. Kevin, perhaps finally realizing the magnitude of his miscalculation, called out after her, "Elizabeth, please, let's start over. We can talk about your film, we can keep things professional. Don't let this conversation end like this." Elizabeth paused at the edge of the set, just within range of the microphones, and delivered what would become the most quoted line from the entire interview. "Kevin, this conversation ended the moment you decided that lies were more interesting than truth, that invasion of privacy was more valuable than integrity, and that destroying reputations was more important than actual journalism." The studio doors were now clearly in sight, and Elizabeth's exit was imminent. But Kevin, in a moment of pure desperation that would define the rest of his career, made one final attempt to salvage something from the wreckage of his interview. Kevin's final desperate gambit would go down in television history as one of the most spectacularly misguided decisions ever made by an entertainment journalist. As Elizabeth reached the studio exit, he called out with the kind of question that would haunt his career forever. "Elizabeth, one last question. If everything you're saying is true, if there was nothing inappropriate about your relationship with Marcus Chen, then why did his wife file for separation just 2 weeks after filming Wrapped?" The entire studio seemed to hold its breath. Elizabeth stopped dead in her tracks, her hand already on the door handle. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before she slowly turned around one final time. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight that made everyone present understand they were witnessing something that would be replayed and analyzed for years to come. "Kevin, what you just said proves everything I've been trying to tell you about your journalistic standards. Marcus Chen's wife didn't file for separation because of anything involving me. She filed for separation because Marcus discovered that his business manager had been embezzling money from their production company for 3 years. The financial betrayal, the legal complications, and the stress of potential bankruptcy destroyed their marriage." The color drained completely from Kevin's face as he realized the magnitude of his error. "Elizabeth, we didn't know about the embezzlement situation." "Of course you didn't know, Kevin, because you never bothered to actually investigate the story you were so eager to broadcast. You took rumors, added speculation, threw in some illegally obtained hotel records, and called it journalism. You destroyed a family's privacy and tried to destroy my reputation based on gossip and half-truths." Elizabeth's voice grew stronger. With each word, her anger now focused into something far more powerful than mere indignation. "Do you have any idea what you've done tonight? Marcus Chen is dealing with financial ruin, potential criminal charges against someone he trusted, and the collapse of his marriage. His children are watching their family fall apart. And you thought the real story was that he made a phone call from my hotel room." Kevin attempted one last weak defense. "Elizabeth, we report on the information we have available. We can't be expected to know every detail of every situation. You can be expected to verify your information before you broadcast it. Kevin, you can be expected to consider the human cost of your reporting. You can be expected to understand the difference between news and entertainment gossip. But clearly, those expectations are too high for entertainment tonight." The studio cameras captured every moment as Elizabeth delivered what would become known as the most devastating on-air takedown in entertainment journalism history. Her words were measured, precise, and absolutely devastating. "Kevin, tonight, you've shown your viewers exactly what's wrong with celebrity journalism. You've demonstrated how rumors become facts, how speculation becomes truth, and how the pursuit of ratings can completely override basic human decency. You've turned someone's family tragedy into entertainment, and you've tried to destroy my reputation in the process." She paused, letting the full weight of her words settle over the studio. "But most importantly, you've shown everyone watching that when journalists abandon their integrity, when they choose sensation over truth, when they decide that destroying lives is acceptable collateral damage for good television, they lose the right to call themselves journalists at all." Kevin sat in stunned silence, apparently finally understanding that he had not just lost an interview but potentially ended his career. Elizabeth, meanwhile, had regained complete control of the situation through the sheer force of her moral authority. "Kevin, I hope your viewers understand that what they witnessed tonight wasn't journalism. It was a character assassination attempt. That failed because the truth is more powerful than lies, because integrity matters more than ratings, and because some of us still believe that how we treat people matters more than what kind of television it makes. With that, Elizabeth Hurley turned and walked through the studio doors, leaving behind the most explosive interview in Entertainment Tonight's history. The cameras continued rolling, capturing Kevin's stunned expression and the absolute silence that had fallen over the studio. The silence was finally broken by Kevin's weak attempt to regain some semblance of professional composure. "We'll be right back after this commercial break," he managed to say, but his voice carried none of its usual confidence. As the studio cut to commercial, everyone present knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. Elizabeth Hurley had not just walked out of an interview, she had delivered a masterclass in grace under pressure, in standing up to bullying disguised as journalism, and in the power of truth to overcome even the most determined attempts at character assassination. The interview would be analyzed, discussed, and debated for months afterward. Kevin Matthews would find his career effectively ended, while Elizabeth Hurley's stock in Hollywood would somehow rise even higher. She had shown that sometimes the most powerful response to an ambush is not to retreat, but to stand your ground and fight back with the most devastating weapon available, the truth. So there you have it, one of the most incredible celebrity confrontations ever captured on camera. What do you think? Did Kevin Matthews cross the line, or was he just doing his job as an entertainment journalist? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more incredible celebrity stories that show what really happens when the cameras are rolling and the gloves come off.